I'm Lynn Horan. This is and chair of the Holyoke Commission on Disabilities. I am going to open up the meeting for our commission. Today is Thursday, August 28th. First, I'd like to do roll call since we have a lot of folks on virtually. So, for starters, then Jessica Liebren. Just please say.
I'm here.
Great.
I'm here.
Leanna Pasalis. Leanna's here. Sarah Wiedemann. We'll come back.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Marlene.
I'm here.
Okay, Sarah's here. Marlene's here. Yes?
Marlene here.
Yes.
Yep.
Good. And Betty is here. And Kelly Curran, our esteemed ADA officer, is also present.
Present.
Okay, so first starting off, somewhat old business, but also new. Our commission had agreed to try to have a meeting in which I'd like to discuss with all of us some of the specific roles and tasks we have and how maybe we can better communicate with each other, delegate roles as to what we are both gifted in but also restricted by. I had wanted to do this as a more private meeting through a closed meeting, but the specifics of that were just that, so specific that they required some sort of legality or liability issue to require the privacy. And after talking to the lawyer more, we agreed. We had two options. One was to either have a separate additional public meeting or two, to just put it on our agenda with an already scheduled meeting. And all members seem to prefer this option. So we're going to do that first. And I sent you all a questionnaire of 4 questions that I think really will kind of help get us started. I guess I want to start off with saying the reason I wanted to do this is, first of all, and since we are doing it in public, it's good for the public to know. We're a very unique sort of commission. In the recommendations and requirements for what makes up our body, for instance, pun intended, is that because we are representing people with disabilities, they ask that most of our membership is disabled / chronically ill. And as well, having at least one member who is a caretaker of someone who is also disabled. So that's kind of a good, important requirement because it helps us to be much more sensitive, aware of, and actually even statistically accurate in assessing the needs of the people who are disabled in Holyoke, who we will represent, because we live it every single day. So that's the good news about it. And people that are disabled are also generally resourceful people because they have to be. They know how to speak out. They know how to find different ways and devise different ways to deal with any kind of obstacles that any of us encounter in life. So that's our advantage. But the irony of it is it can be a disadvantage because of the obstacles that are created by our health issues, but maybe even more so discrimination, or more even than discrimination, a lack of knowledge of what it's like to be disabled. So we encounter issues at work, in our personal lives, etc., because of lack of accessibility or understanding. It isn't that we can't compete at jobs sometimes. It isn't that we can't go to events or raise families. It's often that society doesn't always make it particularly easy for us to do that, and there's a lot of false sort of conceptions about who we are and how we live. So that makes it difficult. So we and our commission in Holyoke have had an unusually difficult last 12 months. People who, how do I put this, and maintain privacy as well. So we have been through cancer in two of our members, still going through it with one. We have had surgeries with another. We had two members lose their fathers. I lost my sister. There's been COVID to deal with, all sorts of things. So an unusual amount of insult on injury. And because of that, we lost some members for periods of time, some of whom were officers, even if temporarily. And so we have to shift in a way that other organizations don't. And I think for the most part, we did a pretty amazing job. People stepped up in roles they didn't necessarily feel comfortable doing, and learned new skills perhaps as well. We learned to appreciate the skills of those that couldn't do their roles anymore. So there were definitely good learning curves. But at this point, I kind of feel like I want to try to get us more solidified, because this can happen again. And I want to be a little more prepared for it and how we distribute both responsibilities and visions, because with visions come responsibilities, and also better communication. So I gave you those 4 questions, and I'd like to ask these questions of each of you, particularly the first 3 of them, really, because I'm going to go first just to kind of open things up a little bit. And I have noted to you, if not in person, but also through emails, that if there are aspects of your answers that you feel uncomfortable stating, then please feel free. You can, if you feel there's something you've left out that's important, that you want us to know and share, you can do that privately with me, and it will maintain its privacy. Again, I can't stress enough to the public, too, that while we have the ACA Act, for instance, thank goodness, that protects Americans from issues that come from pre-existing illnesses that make a big difference, but nonetheless, there can still be discrimination. I myself had to worry about that for 40 years, and long before the ACA came about as well. And even after, we worry about whether we will be treated with respect, promoted like everybody else, same sort of flexibilities, not wanting something special, but wanting the same sort of rights within our jobs and our relationships. And so sometimes we don't talk a lot about the difficulties of it. Doesn't mean we can't function well in those jobs and those relationships, but it certainly can be a struggle. And it's a shame that we don't feel comfortable, for good reason, to talk about all those things. But I would like to, again, share a little bit of mine, just because after 40 years of dealing with it, I hid from a lot of aspects of my illness. My first one's MS and RA, starting when I was 27. Lost my ability. I was working full-time and raising with my husband a 3.5-year-old child. And life pretty quickly changed financially, and distribution of roles within my marriage and in my jobs even. And I think a lot of folks like myself, they want to be seen as who they are first, but they're also scared of rejection. And as I said, very valid reasons in terms of jobs, etc. So it's only been in the last 10 years that I talk more openly about it. And so I'm pretty comfortable about it at this point, but that doesn't mean everybody else is or should be. So back to my role here, because I moved here when I was 55, I had 55 years of life and profession before anyone here in Holyoke knew me. And that makes it kind of difficult. Of course, the embarrassing moments you don't know either, so that might be a good point. But I did run as vice chair and was founder of an organization of about 1,200 people that became a national organization in terms of public schools. It's a long story I won't go into, but we formed when No Child Left Behind began, and we saw in all our counties, Maryland was where I was living, and it's a county system, that they were losing quite a few teachers with use of the one high-stakes testing variable and doubling English classes amounts without adding time to the day. So we lost science teachers, we lost art teachers, we lost music teachers, tech ed teachers, social studies teachers, everybody but reading and math, and it was a mess. Anyway, we formed an organization, worked with major publications like Washington Post and the Baltimore Sun. I, at the time, was their legal liaison and also the legislative liaison, because I had already had a lot of experience with working within government, so this is not my first rodeo. And at that point, I worked with Lieutenant Governor Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. I worked with state legislators and various education foundations across the country for the next 3 years. So I come with those skills, and they were, once again, all volunteers, which is the other thing I like to remind anybody in the public out there. It's the beauty and the difficulty of organizing volunteers. And that's another thing I'll get into later in terms of our restrictions, those of us who still are working either part-time or full-time, as well as volunteering. So that gives you a little idea. There was much more that I've done before that, but I definitely did the public speaking route. I'm also a teacher, and I've done that for about 25 years, as well as a working artist who exhibits her work around the country. So what drew me to join the Holyoke Commission on Disability was living the life of it and recognizing in my own life, I was just trying to kind of navigate everything in my life around the obstacles. Unlike myself in the public school activism and other ways that I did, when I began to realize that perhaps that wasn't the best approach, and I wanted to do more. And finally, I would sum that up with saying that when I went for about, I guess, I'm trying to think now, 30 years walking with a crutch, that I had to go into a wheelchair, which I put off as long as I could, I began to see even more obstacles form with accessibility, with the way that people treat you when you are no longer vertical, don't look you in the eye. They will look over my head in a public place and speak to my vertical, able-bodied husband as though I can't hear, see, or think. And I began to see, yeah, I'd like to do something about this. We do have some laws, and certainly there should be a morality that includes people like us as well. So when I ordered my first wheelchair, the mechanic came, and he was late. And the reason he was late, I was living in Holyoke at the time, He told me that he had to deliver a chair just like mine, which weighs 450 pounds without the person in it, to an older woman, older than me even, and she lived upstairs in a 3-story apartment in the flats area of Holyoke, and there was no elevator, which is not all that uncommon. So it took 4 adult men to get that chair up to her. But you can bet she didn't go anywhere, because who's going to do that every time she has to leave her apartment? And it made me realize that for all my difficulties with my own health issues, access, discrimination, and all of it, that I live a white middle class life. And if it's that bad for me, imagine what it's like for a person that doesn't have those privileges and isn't so fortunate. And that's what drew me in. So that was a longer answer than you have to give, but starts to give you a little bit. So what gifts, skills, and experiences do I bring to this commission? And what did I think they apply to and wish to take on? As I said, I have done leadership roles of volunteers many times. Lots of public speaking, working with legislators at state and local level, going out in communities that may not be the communities that I grew up in necessarily, because I find when I do move, and I have moved way too many times, that the best way to learn my community is to go about in them with no agenda, just simply learn and appreciate to know them. And that's one of the things I like about Holyoke, is its diversity. That feels more like the real world. I grew up in 7 different states, but the majority of my growing up years and part of my adult years were in Baltimore and Washington, which is a very diverse, racially diverse population. And it seemed normal to see that again in my home here. So again, those are the sorts of skills I hope that I can do in leadership, as long as I can do leadership, but also just in general. I'm also used to working with the press quite a lot too, writing press releases both in my job and my volunteer work. So I see myself as doing the position I am in now, but only with help, because it should never be about one person or even one person's visions. What restrictions do I have? Other responsibilities, health issues. Well, you all know, as I said, I have progressive MS and RA. I'm now going around with 2 gloves on because I have carpal tunnel syndrome in both arms, which comes from, actually likely from, a neurological disease. I also have a common variable immune deficiency disease. It's a genetic thing. I don't make immunoglobulins. I'll be getting them infused tonight, as I do every 2 weeks, by my husband for the last 14 years. It keeps me safer from infections, but I have to watch out for infections. So as summer cases of COVID are starting to go up, and flu, you'll find me either doing more virtual work or masking. So it can be a restriction in terms of where I can go publicly and be exposed, particularly in wintertime. I can go with this wonderful chair. I'm safer in this chair than I was with the crutch, because there's less risk of falling. Everybody else has to be a little worried about me, and I have to pay more attention with a 450-pound chair where I go. The only restriction I have is when a building is not accessible, and so that can become a problem in going to events and buildings, and even some that should be by law accessible and are not. The only other restriction I would say is, because of the issues between time for doctors, surgeries, treatments, and dealing with exhaustion all the time, like most of us, if I pace myself and responsibilities, like in this commission, and when there is support, if I'm in a leadership role, then I can do just about anything. But definitely those things have to be considered in working with me. So that's it for me. I will talk about 4 on communication with everybody together and specific roles, everybody together, but I've talked a long time. So now I'd like to hear the first 3 questions addressed by you all. So I'm going to start with Jessica, our vice chair.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I actually wrote my answers down for you. I'm trying to bring them up here.
We can go on to
First,
somebody else if you don't feel ready.
no,
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Fire
What
away.
I wrote is what I wanted to say is I worked directly with the disabled special needs populations for over 15 years. That's how I started my career. I was a direct support worker. I was a caretaker, medical provider, and even a companion. I've worked in group homes, private homes, facilities, and day centers, as well as I even went as far as job coaching to help them obtain employment for self-sufficiency. Um, I've seen the barriers and issues they faced every day. I myself, as a caretaker for family members, have experienced it as well. So I understand the challenges, although I may no longer work in a direct care or medical field, I remain close with these experience with the disabled population. I was able to obtain my degrees, which has allowed me to move forward in the human services field to continue to protect and advocate for them. And that's as simple and straight to the point that I can make it. This is truly why I continue to do it. As I get older, I do face my own challenges with my health and my own disabilities, yet they may be minor to some, but I am now facing that as well. So this is the reasons of why I do what I do, is to protect the most vulnerable. They don't have a voice, and continue to do so.
That,
And that's all.
that's great. So in terms of, and I want to express too that even in talking in our budget subcommittee the other night with several of our members, and we talked a little bit about this because we felt comfortable in a setting, again, not a quorum, so we could freely talk, that no matter how long you've lived, no matter how many places, you never know what you don't know until you know it. And so with each of us, that's kind of why I wanted to do that too. So I may know some things about, say, Jess and what she's done in the past, but maybe the other members don't. And it's, we didn't necessarily see when you applied to be appointed what your background was. And also those things, particularly when it comes to disability, we all need care at more than one time in our lives from birth. And so things change too. So that's, again, great to share, Jess. So is there anything more specific that you want to say about what skills or experience you bring and how you can apply them to the roles you're either doing now or would like to do with us?
Honestly, I have the ability to put myself in others' shoes. It is easily said that you can do it, but you can't unless you've lived it or you've seen it or experienced it yourself.
Empathy.
In my time of working in group homes and having to travel with people with disabilities in their wheelchairs, using the the harnesses, the lifts to get them in and out the vehicles, certain areas that they couldn't squeeze into, certain functions they couldn't attend, just the basic needs was hard at times, being excluded, not having a voice, not being able to advocate for themselves. I've experienced it all as a caretaker. And that's what I wanted to add. I've over 15 years of working in this field, and I've seen it all. There's so many things that I've seen that I just can't pinpoint it to one thing. But I know their hardships, I know their challenges and everything that they face, and I would like to continue to advocate for them. Like I said, I'm not directly in that field or a medical provider any longer, but now I'm in a position where I can continue to do so. And that's all I have.
I'm sorry? Well, and
That was
so
all.
is, okay, and I would say too, when we formed the budget committee, and started talking about it, and we'll go into that as we get into the budget item soon too. But Jess does have experience with management and with budgets as well.
Yes, I do. I deal with state budgets. I deal with the fiscal year budgets. I have experience with it all.
Very good. And is there anything other more specific than already generally what you've said in your own experiences, both with your own health issues, about restrictions? I mean, and when I say restrictions, it could be, for instance, I know you work full time and you also have a family.
I've worked full time, yes, but I would never let that stop me from participating and doing what I need to do for the commission. As like everyone else, if I know what I need to do ahead of time, you can count that it's going to get done and executed correctly. As far as disabilities, I was born with a disability that's not everyone can see. I struggle at times. I don't want to disclose it, but you can't really tell that I struggle with my own disabilities. Sometimes being mobile for too long, it causes some issues. So yeah.
And again, I appreciate that much, even just
And
because.
this is new to explain and outly and be on camera. Everyone can hear that you're opening up, like you said earlier, and explaining what qualifies you, what are your experience, and then speaking about your own medical or health challenges. So
Exactly.
This is new to me, and I'm being as open and as straightforward.
And
yes.
and you're doing a great job in this exactly. Again, I can't express enough. Each of us is different. Our situations are different. Our personalities are different. And I want to respect that. But I think, just for instance, in just what you've mentioned, there are the types of disabilities are so incredibly diverse. It's not all wheelchairs and mobility issues. There is how you process information, like someone who's autistic. There is mental health issues. There are like depression. There are substance use, which often comes from that as a form of self-medicating before you really get the proper treatment for the mental health illness. Again, and then there are just so many people, for instance, with MS. 75% of them have relapsing remitting, not the progressive form I have. And not to minimize it by any means, it's still not fun. that it hits you in your late 20s, early 30s when you are just starting a career. You have no savings. You may be raising children already. But initially, things like the fatigue, people look at you and say, but you look so good. That's the mantra we just throw our hands up in the air with, because it has nothing to do with our age or how young we might look or healthy. There are lots of things. Lupus is often like that. You cannot tell that necessarily from the outside, a very serious incapacitating disease. But there are also different levels. Again, in MS, you may not need a assistive device if you have relapsing remitting. Only 15% again are progressive. You may not need that until another 15 or 20 years after diagnosis. But it's still being disabled. Internal organs are impacted by diseases that we don't see. And, you know, among people who are vision impaired, there's different degrees of that. That may exclude complete blindness, but still have huge impact on how they function and get around. Hearing, same way. They're just, so I appreciate you speaking about those many illnesses, diseases that are invisible to the rest of the world. So thanks for that, Jess. And so next one, I'm going by who I see here on the virtual. Leanna, are you interested in talking about some of this, starting with one, what initially drew you to commit to the Holyoke Commission on Disability? And I am guessing, is she only writing? If we're going to come back to you, Leanna, and you can write to me anything that you feel you'd like to add in terms of your own answers to these questions, and give you a little time. And then, if you're comfortable, we will share those as well. So next, we'll go on to Sarah Wiedemann. And I assume Baxter may be there as well. Sarah?
Yes, hi. Hi, I'm here.
Great.
Yes. And just for the record, I'd rather we didn't use my child's name.
Okay. Those are really exactly the kind of things that we need to know, Sarah. And you're a very different situation. You're not only a caretaker, you're a caretaker of a child. So
yes, so a little bit of my background. In my life before, I was a professional American Sign Language interpreter, and I had the great privilege to work with a number of deaf communities in different parts of the country. Most recently here in this area, I was based out of the Bay State medical system, and so was with people in a lot of variety of complex situations where I was part of the communication team and got to see how access impacted, their lives every day. As well as the people around them when doctors couldn't communicate or there weren't enough interpreters. And I worked with a large team of spoken language interpreters, so it wasn't just people who used American Sign Language, but we saw the same issues come up with other communities who used other languages. So that's a little bit about my background. And then I am a parent, and I have, I take care of and have taken care of a number of young people who have had a variety of needs and needs for advocacy that have been different with each of my kids. And I am now a full-time caregiver. And So just my brain stopped working right then. So I haven't slept in a number of years, as I'm sure a lot of you know what that's like. So what do I bring to the commission now? Besides my saucy sense of humor.
I think
A real dedication
that's a
to
big
the work.
asset. I'm sorry, Sarah. I interrupted you. Could you
No,
repeat?
it's okay.
Okay.
I was saying a dedication to the work. This is, it's not theoretical. It's people's real lives, and small changes in accessibility make huge impacts. And we see that every day, and I know you all do too. And so I wanted to be more involved in Holyoke, and I wanted to be involved in a way that was meaningful. And so this really felt like a great fit. When it comes to restrictions and other responsibilities, I'm joking, but also in real life, my particular caretaking is a 24-hour gig. So I'm often up all night doing the things that need to be done, which means that I don't have a consistent schedule. And I think that's the part that you'll see me sort of flail on when other people are working sort of, who appear to be able to communicate more consistently. I cannot always log on in a way that feels like I'm present. Doesn't mean I'm not reading the emails. It means that I just literally don't have the hands to respond. So what I think probably feels like inconsistency is just simply that I'm doing another job.
Yes, you are. 24 hours. I
Yeah.
don't think people use that time phrase very widely. You do not. You know what 24 hours is, no doubt.
I do. So that's a little summary of me and my people.
And that's very helpful, and particularly Sarah. Again, like I said, there's so many issues of privacy, and yet at the same time, our job is to educate and inform. It's really tricky balance to create, and so what you've done just there is hugely helpful. We think we know something. We think we know. We may be a largely empathetic and kind person, but there are some experiences, like raising kids, period, sometimes, regardless of health issues, that there's no pre-training for either. But again, you are a really good example of another aspect of disability issues and rights, or lack of, that's so important in caretaking. And so hearing first your contribution is truly remarkable, and second, the fact that you're being here and even sharing some of this is how we go about really opening up this topic. Most people think of caretaking, as you're older or as children, and both of those things are true. In fact, I would strongly encourage people, I think, and I'd love to hear, Sarah, if you've seen it or what your thoughts on it at some time. PBS has done some really great documentaries on disability issues just this year, and they did one, and I do believe it's called Caretaking, and it just, I think, premiered maybe 2-3 months ago, but I would definitely encourage people to take a look at it. Able-bodied people as well, and they start off with that premise that everyone in this world is going to need care at some point, and we start off with it as caregivers to children and grandchildren, and then inevitably bodies do start to fall apart. We are none of us going to live forever, And so, but there's a whole lot that happens in between. So again, it needs to be talked about, and I like too that Sarah is talking. First of all, that's really interesting to hear about your interpreter for ASL for so long, and your empathy that's bound and knowledge that comes from that, but also, talking about access, our healthcare, particularly, is just a mess. And again, I've experienced it for 40 years, and since I've been disabled in 4 different states, and it is really frightening. It is getting borderline negligent, and the more complex you are, the worse it gets. And we're going to see with what's happening in the cuts and basic destruction, and this is not a partisan statement, this is reality, folks, between Medicaid and Medicare, and watching CDC get taken apart and the rest of it as we begin to face the normal winter things of flu and colds, but also COVID. Public health care access, information and access to it is just, it's really in dire straits, and it's likely to get worse. So it's going to take all hands on deck to support the folks that really need that care. So Sarah, again, thanks. I appreciate it, and I hope for me, myself, or any of us, that you will, if you feel the need to do it privately, to let us know how we can be more sensitive and accommodating, because we love to see you stay on with us as long as you can. But again, this is kind of the point of this discussion. Who can fill in for who? And we'll probably end up doing that, exchanging roles back and forth. But it's helpful for us to know, again, not just your gifts, which are also not always known, but your restrictions as well, even the obvious ones like yours, Sarah. So thanks for that. All right. Next would be Marlene.
Sure, and I will be brief, which is, it's been my professional career trying to build accessible communities and transportations around the country. So as the world's gotten crazier, it's my job to try to make sure I can contribute something where I can make a difference. So I am a lifelong Holyoker, and here I am. So I have no disabilities myself. Obviously, I've been a caregiver for my mom before she passed away, and I am here to assist and do this because it means the world, and it's what I do. So please allow me to be the person that supports everybody and gets this stuff done.
Thanks, Marlene. And again, I would say, I had the advantage of knowing Sarah at least a little bit before she came on, and also Marlene, who worked with my husband on various city organizations. So I felt like I knew something about her. But I would ask you, Marlene, was there any event or anything that you could share or want to share? You clearly have a real affinity for this group of people. And by affinity, I don't mean pity. I mean empathy and frustration for them, as well as respect for them. But not everybody comes to that so easily.
I mean,
so.
I fell into public transportation very early in my career, and
it made sense to me then, and it still makes sense to me now, that every system that was ever out there needed to be accessible, and they all needed to fit together. I was the executive director of the TVTA for a bunch of years, but I actually started off as the planner for the paratransit program. That was early in my career, so I've been in this place thinking that everything needs to fit together forever. And my business partner for the last 25 years actually had pulmonary fibrosis. So I was painfully aware how hard everything was for him all the time. So, yep, I've been there, and it's just something that's right.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it does make a difference, even if the experience isn't directly yours, to actually walk the walk, pun intended again, with someone.
Oh yeah.
And I got to tell you, in my discussions with Marlene, I have seen her get as angry and frustrated as I do, quietly and aside, of course, and also her eyes fill up with tears when she sees that person unable just to do the simplest thing, like take her child to a grocery store because there's no accessible transportation for her.
Yeah.
So, and it is true and genuine, there's no doubt. So, and again, not everybody comes to that. And again, your skills with transportation, because transportation is one of the largest issues, whether you're a caretaker of someone that's disabled or you are disabled yourself. That is a huge part in our lives. First of all, getting
Absolutely.
Yep. Getting to our health care.
If you can't get somewhere, you're toast.
Yep. And again, we actually have children and we have responsibilities, and we want to be able, that's another thing with families that I know Sarah understands, and I do in a different kind of position with disability, having children and still having to take care of them when I can't run and protect them, can't keep them from running out in the street, can't go running around the bases in the backyard with them, though I did the best I can, and it was not pretty, but they seemed to appreciate my efforts. But it was all the events that sometimes neither Sarah in her position nor myself, it isn't just us that's prohibited from going to an event when it's not accessible, but it is our children. So we missed a lot of things with my kids. I did the best I could because I couldn't get there, or they had to go and I couldn't be a part of that experience with them. And it's also their siblings. So that's the other thing. A child who's disabled may have able-bodied siblings. It impacts everybody, and you're, as a parent, trying to create a solid unit and good foundation for sibling relationships and friendships. And if you can't take your child to an event because it's not accessible, it's a huge impact on the entire family. So all of these experiences, I hope you're getting something out of it. I hope anybody that bothers to listen to this recording at some time will. But I appreciate hearing it. And again, transportation, huge part of, and definitely a good asset that you add, Marlene. Anything else, Marlene?
Yeah. I'm all set.
All right. So, Miss Betty. And Betty, of course, we all know she's the one with the long history and institutional knowledge that goes beyond a lot of ours, not only for Holyoke, but this particular commission. So, Betty, what can you share with us that we don't know?
I don't know about that. Let me begin by saying I have not seen the questions that you said you sent, but I get the gist of what it is that you want people to talk about. So as you said, I am a long-term Holyoke resident, although my family grew up first in South Hadley, and we moved to Holyoke in the early 1960s, so I've been a resident since that time. When I left college, I did work in the Maryland School District for a few years and then moved back home to Holyoke. And I've been here since that time in the 70s. I joined the Holyoke Public Schools as a teacher in elementary school, became a special ed teacher, and then supervisor, and then director of the special ed program. So I have multiple years of experience within the special ed program. And it was at that time that I joined the commission, although under a different name because of the history of it at that point. In the 1980s, I guess, is when I joined this group. So yes, I've been a long-term member and officer of the group. So I do have the history with things that have gone on, activities that we've done in the past, and am very happy to be a resource to the current group on past history. My disability at this point is my arthritis. I've had multiple surgeries on various joints, and I will have more to come in the future, but I am not considered disabled enough because my recovery is very good after these surgeries. Though it does take time, obviously, for hospitalization and rehab, but I am not considered a disabled individual. I am on this group because of my history with special ed services and my various activities with other groups and volunteer work within the community. So that's it at this point.
And that's huge because, again, two of these people I helped to get on. I say helped, they did it themselves, but knew something about them. But for like you and Leanna, I can go by some of the things that you've said, but especially with your long term and your life length, lots can happen in that time. And so that's really helpful to hear for me. And I thank you for sharing it. And I do think it's important what draws us to that, how we do get empathy or maintain it, and why we continue. Betty, it's been 20 how many years?
Almost 30.
Almost 30 years. So of this commitment. So again, lots can happen in personal life and everything around you. So to stick it out too is pretty remarkable as well. So thanks for that information, Betty. And I'm assuming that, I can certainly see where your skills have come with and have been with that much of volunteering. Anybody, as I know myself, involved with the public school in teaching, once a teacher, always a teacher. Sometimes the rest of others may get tired of that statement, but there's a commonality that draws people into teaching, and especially when they stick with it. And because as teachers do a multitude of different tasks, they tend to have organizational abilities. You're certainly better if you're a teacher of 40 students or how many kids. So that all makes sense to me. And in terms of restrictions, if I've heard you, you're dealing with that part of life where you're likely to have more issues, and we know that you certainly have, and glad for the recovery that you have had, but I hope you'll always be open with us too about when there's something you can no longer do, or even if it's just for a period of time, or when you need to stop doing something for any of those reasons. So that's a good share as well. So we're getting pretty long, and this is why I was worried about doing this at the regular meeting, but I hope it's going to be beneficial to you. And I would also say, and Kelly might be able to help me with this, you said that you did not get the email today with the questions?
If it was sent today, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay. And we're going to start, and we'll talk about that later too. We're almost there to get going to the rest of things about how we're going to go about keeping a compilation of some of our meetings or important documents or links so that everybody knows they can go there to look for anything. So we are back to Leanna and Kelly. Do we have anything from Leanna?
She had it written in the chat when I went on last. Leanna, if there's something in the chat, can you raise your hand? If not, we'll just move.
You can send it on to me.
Oh, okay. Let me check the chat.
And again, this is something that's so much easier on Zoom. So I think you'll find all this will be smoother when we start in with the new platform.
It's trying to make me get off of the other one.
And I would also...
If someone else could read the chat, I think you all
Can
read
s-
it. If you're on the computer, you could read it.
And Leanna, again, if you can just do what you did before and signal that that's okay for someone to read your chat. Yep, she's good.
Because I don't see it in here. So if someone who could read it, that would be great.
I have it. I can read it.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
It says, from Leanna, number 1, I was drawn to the commission by a formal member who shared that there was a need to make the commission more diverse, and I additionally wanted to serve folks with limited representation and access. I have been in the human services field for the last 21 years and remain in the public sector, so my skills are many and varied. I am chronically ill individual as well as a caretaker of a disabled individual. I am working through my second bout of breast cancer, so my main limitations is my autoimmunocompromised status, so I will remain virtual as we move forward. And she said that she typed this out prior to.
Okay. Okay, and if that's what you have, Leanna, and there's, signal me if there's anything else you want to add. So I'm gonna say, and thanks, Jess, for reading that. So the next one is Kelly.
I'll keep it short because I'm going on 12 hours today. But so I am part of this commission as the ADA coordinator, but I also feel very privileged to be on it with all you who are actually making the commission an actionable board. I know that there are tons of people who are not represented in our city, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can help them. So that's part of the reason I am on here, as well as it's part of my job. But my gifts, skills, experience, I don't want to bore you with that all, but I am pretty organized and created the drive Lynn was talking about, so we can share all the documents and try to create efficiencies when communicating. And yeah, there's other things, but I don't want to keep you guys all night either. So
Well, and I think, you know, again, personnel director and multitasking, and as we personally talked about, some of the other things that you deal with that can actually be an obstacle can also be very helpful in terms of multitasking. And I would say I believe in the bylaws. I was kind of surprised to see a while ago that in Holyoke, the ADA officer is always the personnel director. And I've actually not seen that before. What I've seen is usually DPW or city planning. And I think that's mostly because they're thinking of ADA laws that go towards accessibility, structures, knowledge. And many times the things that we do are that. But they're also really about people skills too. But, you know, again, with the ADA officer, they kind of get thrown into this too. So it isn't always necessarily, it's always interesting. It isn't necessarily what they had expected to do or chose to do, but that does not mean we're not dependent on them or they don't appreciate it or not dedicated to it as well. But I will say, you know, it's kind of hard to say that there's any city office here in Holyoke that isn't busy. But personnel definitely is one. And her advantage is that because of that, she has a far better brain than I do for remembering names and basic aspects of each person that works in the city. That is also to our advantage as well, but maybe not always to hers. But that's pretty much it. So on the last thing, which are the best ways, Betty, what I asked was, what are the best ways, email, phone, text, to communicate with you all? And then also, if you could, and I would ask, you can do this later and then email it to me, and I'll put that out to everybody. But what the best ways? We have like 5 different protocols for ways nowadays with tech that we can communicate. And I, for one, am not convinced it always makes life easier, because everybody's got a different protocol, and that can change in your lifetime too. But which ones work for you best for important emails, particularly in responses? And then if you could tell me which days of the week or times of those days that work best for you. We can't always be perfect, but I'd sure like to be, I'd like to see us better at response. And I also don't want to be sending you endless emails or separate communications, because then things start to get very confusing for both me and you all, or intrusive. So again, if you could come up and write those down, email that answer. What are the best ways, email, phone, text, to communicate with you? And also include the days of the week and times that are best, and give first and second choices. That would be really hugely helpful, I think, for all of us. Then we're not, and I know I'm not in my role, Buck kind of stops me. I need to be kind of that glue at the top. I'll do a lot better job and not hound you as much if I have some consistency, have this written down for my own memory issues, to be able to communicate with everybody. So we are done that, and as I warned, it was going to take some time. I hope it helped us get to know each other a little bit, not the way I really wanted to try to do it, in a much more relaxed environment, but within public meeting law, we did the best we could. So on to the agenda finally. So, update on the Commission on Disabilities budget funds for the fiscal year starting July 2025 through June 2026. And I'd kind of like to give the mic to Kelly about this, being our city connection. The budget, I'll let you know that the budget subcommittee, which is myself, Kelly, Jessica, and Marlene, had a meeting a few days ago so that we kind of could update you. We've had that money since July, but we needed to learn how the disbursement works and all the technicalities. So Kelly met with us and talked with us at length about that. So I'll let her, it's actually a pretty simple process that we all can understand. I'll let her explain that. If you have any questions, please pipe up. And also in terms of the treasurer role, Jessica has been functioning as this from the beginning. We have been working on this particular end of the budget since February with the mayor and the mayor's office. And so that is certainly who I'm going to nominate, but we can do a formal vote after Kelly's finished, just so we're square on that too. So Kelly.
Yeah. So we have a very small budget that will be manageable. Hopefully in years to come, it'll be bigger, and we'll get a lot of things accomplished in the city. But in terms of ordering or procuring anything, we can get quotes, and I'll have my clerk enter it in. We have the account numbers, and I can print reports, on a monthly or quarterly, whatever basis we need, for the balances of what is in each account. Our first purchase will be a Zoom account, so we won't have bombers joining us or all the technical difficulties that we have with Google Meets.
And Kelly, can you tell us, you were talking about, for instance, we've already itemized the 4 categories that we're working on, that you all have been given that information on too, starting with, and these are all already aligned with state recommendations as well, and also with our mayor. So starting with the job that we have delegated to us of education, and in terms of our public service, education and support of resource information, etc. And that includes our meetings. It will include our survey, which we'll talk about in a bit too. But all of those kind of things. But we're starting, as Kelly just said, we have our first purchase. So Kelly, if you could talk about, you were talking about first, once we already have those itemized line on the budget, we know what they encompass, what sorts of things we can do within them. We're now starting to do that, starting with the Zoom. So when we do that, if you could tell us, then I believe you stated to us that we would contact you or your clerk.
Yep.
So if you could just real simple, that 1, 2, 3 step. And I believe you also said once we contact you and her, about this, it can take anywhere reasonably from a week to, on occasion, depending the difficulty or complexity of the item or amount of money, 3 weeks to actually process.
Correct. So if we have a quote, like if someone on the team got a quote or a contract, if it's under $10,000, she can just put in a requisition, and that'll get a purchase order cut, and services should be able, or product should be delivered shortly after. If it's over 10,000, we have to get 3 quotes. But yeah, it typically is very quick. Our procurement office is very supportive, and my head clerk Nisha is very fast too. So, and I know if for some reason one of us can't get a quote, I think she's able to help us do that also.
Does anybody have any questions about that?
I have a question. Lynn? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you heard me.
Yes.
At last couple of weeks, at the last city council meeting a couple weeks ago, there was a big discussion from the committee, from the board, council, regarding purchase orders specifically related to the CPA wanting a fund that they could
Yes.
access on their own. I'm getting the gist of that conversation, meaning any kind of order has to go through them to get permission to spend the money. Are we going to get tied up in that kind of an issue?
No.
And I'm glad you asked that. First of all, Betty, there was a special meeting just last night on those issues, and there was even one that part of that was anything over $200 as opposed to $10,000. So I'll let Kelly answer that better, but yes, I was watching that as well.
Thanks, Lynn and Betty. I did not see that, but there should not be those kind of restrictions on our budget at all. I don't know if it's because it's CPA funds they had those restrictions, but
No, they were setting up a special fund to do activities different than their normal big grants that they do. But I was just concerned because it was a smaller amount of money and it sounded just like the kinds of things that we would be doing.
I think yes and no to that, Betty, because somebody who's actually running for city council is concerned about, actually a lot of people on city council. It's a little bit of overreach, in my opinion, of control. And the best way I can describe it from what I know so far, for them to make those really big, large changes, there are aspects of law that they have to go through first. So we've got to get there first. Public is just getting really aware of that. And I would also say, so we will certainly, and I know Kelly working for the city will be some of the first to hear on all of this, the outcome. But again, I think probably I'm going to try to project the most positive comment I can say on those city councilors that are trying to do that, you know, in any budget, there can be those expenditures that don't actually, have a lot to do with the line item that was agreed and voted on, or the money goes over or into some other category. But again, I think that what we really want to find is a balance of all of those things, and making every single group, including ours, submit every time anything is $200 or above is not going to be an efficient process. I've witnessed many, many local governments. I've never seen anything like this. So I think and I hope that the entire city council is, what they're trying to do is put together something more common sense that will address those extreme situations without impacting the whole. But we will certainly be doing our due diligence as we go forward to find out. And as you know, those kind of things will take a certain amount of time to go through process too. So for instance, our recent disbursement really is not going to be impacted on that. And I just can't imagine that there's any common sense to pulling something out that's, $200 or $205 and making the full city council vote on it, or even just one committee of the city council vote on it every time any one of these commissions or boards or aspects of the city makes a purchase. So I'm hoping for common sense and fair minds. But we'll definitely keep you posted. And Betty, that's something you're always good at, is watching those city council meetings. They're important for all constituents to do.
Well, having dealt with the Munis system for so long through the school department, I know there's a lot of issues coming up with them wanting to track financial process. So I'm not surprised that they are considering all of this minute detail, but
Yeah.
I'm concerned that it's going to affect us in the future as we try to put through any of our purchase orders.
Well, we'll certainly have to be watchful and find out. But by the same token, we can advocate for what we see as a fair way to go about it. Most of these things do require public input. For instance, at some point, we are considered city workers, even though we're volunteers. We can also speak in that capacity as well. And I also would say, we are a city of low revenue and much need for all the wonderful aspects of Holyoke, as we all know. And budgets are always tight, but with what's happening in the country right now, it's going to be tighter. So, yeah, I think in the end, what we do, especially on the budget committee, is to always stay in communication with the mayor and city council as we go about this process, especially if there's any part of it in flux. You're certainly right about that. Anybody else? Okay. So we talked about the Zoom again, just to say that will start in September. We have never had a budget that we could even pay for. The professional version of most of these platforms will allow you to do more things. I know a lot of us prefer Zoom, particularly for these sorts of meetings. And the sorts of things that you can do will make it much smoother. And when you consider that we would like to think and hope we will draw in more of the public to see what we're doing, or anybody else in the city, that we will look a lot more cohesive and coherent when we get that done. For instance, when we did a Zoom recently, they only allow you the free version of it to go 40 minutes before they kick you out. Most meetings and most commissions go an hour, at least. Some of them way more than that. So the going in and out for people who are disabled, particularly if they can't be heard, if they can't be seen, if they can't see or hear us, is especially a problem. So I think this is really going to help. We'll also be able to get functions for closed captions and translation. And Kelly, is there anything else you can say about the package we're getting with that?
No, it's very complicated. We have to use a credit card. Good thing the city did get like a P card, so It's not going to go through the purchase order process. Yeah. But regarding the package, no. There's additional add-ins, but I think the translation and the caption is the biggest thing for us, right?
Yes. And you're saying in the way you're talking about it that it's not, or it is included? I thought it was included.
It is included.
Yeah. In the basic. Yeah. Okay, great. So we can start with that, and that'll be a huge advantage to be able to have it translated in Spanish as well, in closed captions. So again, I expect it to go. There may be a few bumps just getting to know some of it, but most of us have worked with it before, so I think it'll be smoother. For instance, Natalia has the camera set up. I am right now, as I'm looking at the higher podium at the end of this room. But you all are to my right in terms of visual. And so you might see me turning away because I'm trained to look at the people I'm with. So that hopefully we can get figured out too. So camera is posed in the same place so that that it feels more like the people that are sitting in-house are actually communicating with you in virtual. But I wanted to point that out. Definitely not being rude. It's just a tricky thing to figure out. So next is the survey. That is also relevant to our first discussion because, again, these are categories of roles that I'd like to see the people interested play a part in, and those that don't know who to go to when they want to ask questions for it. So I think in discussions with all of us, and even separately, that all of us feel like the survey is a really important thing to get going on. We got a good start a long time ago, got kind of blasted and slowed down by COVID, but I think we're on to getting things pretty going far now. So in terms of the survey, which in terms of the budget would also come under that first category, we would need to choose a platform like SurveyMonkey, which is not too exorbitantly expensive, and they can not only help us set it up, they can also, if we choose that service, help us evaluate it once we've done it. So the first step in the survey we've been talking about is to go into neighborhoods where we can actually let them know first who we are at the commission and why the survey is important. It's really important, as we've been saying tonight so much, when it comes to health issues and disability, people are especially private for some very good reasons. So gaining their trust and confidence is going to be really important. More people are coming out when weather is nice. There's lots of events been going on downtown. I've been to a number of them myself, and hope to take advantage of that until that white stuff starts falling on the ground again. That's what we are going to do. Initially, we had a group that consisted, if memory is correct, of Betty and myself, and I think Sarah was also part of that too. And we had discussions. We looked at East Hampton and some other places of their surveys. I contacted the state to find out what kind of surveys had been done by comparable cities, but mostly we found the ones they did come up with were kind of apples to oranges. So what we did learn is East Hampton's sounded interesting. I think they have revised it, so it's probably worth it for me to go back to them. But it was 75 questions. that's going to be prohibitive to any survey. Nobody's going to do that or fully with that much time invested in it. So again, I think our philosophy developed for this is first to go downtown to some of these events. Both Marlene and Jessica have said they would be glad to go with me. It doesn't have to be everybody, and we probably shouldn't have a quorum, obviously. And also, as with Jessica having a Latina background and some knowledge of the language as well, she will be an advantage in going down in a lot of these neighborhoods that will also be really helpful for communication. So the initial idea is for this group of us to go and some of these events and just introduce ourselves and let them know the things we're doing, and that eventually, we hope very soon, to complete and start pass around a survey so that we can have an idea of where they think their biggest needs in terms of disability are. And then after getting some of that information, then I hope we'll be better at compiling the actual questions, work with a platform service like SurveyMonkey, set it up, and then when we distribute it, we will do a combination of online, but because so many, unfortunately, in Holyoke, just reading some statistics about that now, do not have access to the internet. So it will be also important for us to go in and distribute them manually, face-to-face, person-to-person, for lots of good reasons. And we will also probably need to think about getting, either hiring a translator or finding a translator for that as well. And so it's a big deal, but if we do it right, I think the next time around, it'll be easier to keep up on it. And I have to tell you, and some of you may have seen some of the recordings of when we talked about the budget, particularly the 22G funds, in front of City Council. When I mentioned those 4 items and mentioned the four categories and mentioned survey as being part of the first one, every single one of them, even naysayers on other aspects of it, thought that was an excellent idea. Data is important, especially when it's good data and sound data. So anybody else have anything to contribute in terms of the survey? Oh, I'm sorry. I've listed about 4, and I'll pass that on to you all as well. I can think we've come up with at least 4 different groups for starters that have events that would be a good place to meet people and let them know who we are. One is this is La Familias, Jess.
Enlace.
Yeah.
Enlace.
Yes. Enlace Familias. And it is, and they're a great group that work with families, really pretty broad extension to lots of ages and types of events that they have, and very well thought of. There's also, what was the other one that is actually run? This is on Main Street. And the other one very close to it that's been around for ages as well is, and of course I don't have that, but
I don't know,
La
Kelly, did we say
Esperanza.
You guys, I'm running out of juice on my earphone here, so.
Okay. I'm like I said, Sarah, I'm sorry. I really wanted to do that other thing, separately
That's
for that
okay, I know.
reason. But do what you can if you can
Okay,
stay on
we'll
it.
talk
And
later and we'll get on the survey
yes,
stuff, yeah.
that sounds great, Sarah. No worries. There's not a thing you can do about that. And so again, back to so There's La Esperanza, which is only like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're not even, they're also on Main Street.
Correct.
And right down, I was just down there, they're like across the street practically from Providence Ministries. And just a lot of activity going on in both those places, some good folks. So we also can engage with leadership in those community organizations, which will be very helpful. And that brings us to One Holyoke, who is currently getting their funding together and starting to work on making their building accessible. Went to an event they had this past weekend called the Walk and Roll that they do every year. And that was a good opportunity to see Nairobi Rosa again, as well as others there. So there's 3. And then, of course, the Senior Center absolutely as well will be a great place to get to know folks more. We already know Neve and Eileen McGinnis and others that work there. But that will also be a good place to pick people's brains and see. And they cater to folks from all over the place in Holyoke. So I think those 4 places, and if anybody can think of anywhere else, will be really helpful.
I think we also mentioned V-Care, right, Kelly?
Yes, V-Care as well, yes.
Yeah, I think it'll be good to have a database of all the
Yes.
places we recommend, and then maybe someone can commit
Right.
to visiting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And again, these events are enjoyable too, and it's a good thing for all of us to do, but it's all time. So we may have to split it up with 2 of us going, or 2 different ones back and forth to various places. But I do want to start getting on that pretty quick, because weather is already cooling down in some ways. And there are upcoming events happening where we can start doing that. I think the summer events that one of those groups is putting on with the summer films and all is starting to end. But library's not bad either, but I think if we stick to these basic 4, we can kind of piecemeal a good start, because I'd really like to use the winter for really writing it up and getting it going. Probably realistically, end of winter, beginning of spring before, and that might be optimistic of really getting it out there, but the sooner the better. And again, this will help us in lots of our other endeavors to have that data. Plus, it's what we do. That's a big part of what the recommendations by the state and our own recommendations from Holyoke are to do, is to be a place of resource for these folks and support. So after that, I would say we go back on to and I can do this pretty quickly. Update on the 22G funds account through the state. Again, can't emphasize it enough. This is a separate attempt at a budget from what we have received, which is from the mayor's office and with the approval of city council. Excuse me, just for the fiscal year July 25 through the end of June 26. This is separate. And that is the whole reason, again, quickly, is because doing a revolving account is pretty much impossible to do. Not only is it hard to do, and by revolving account, I mean if you have money left over, or if you want to change anything, you have to go through that whole long process of two committees at least through the city council before you put it through full city council for approval. These folks work hard. They've got agendas sometimes with anywhere from 48 to 70 some items. And so I just don't see that as being very productive. The other thing is mayors change, city councilors change. We won't have or be able to maintain consistency. And some of the programs we'd like to do are going to take longer time to build, like the idea of transportation to help the senior center have a accessible form of transportation. We will never be able to pay for all of it, but we can do contributory things that will help get them over the hump. But all of these things, again, economics change. Our own economics are changing right now. So it would really be nice to be able to have that account instead, so that we don't have to go. We still have checks and balances we have to do, both with city and with state, but it's not near the elongated process of having to do that every single year, every single fiscal year. So that's why we're still working on it. On that, what we have, I think, is the best strategy. And obviously, if anybody disagrees, please let me know. We have had several meetings with the finance committee and also through city council through the mayor's budget that we have. So they have more and more information from us that Kelly and I and the rest of us have compiled for statistics in terms of the budget. We've got a couple more things I'd still like to double check on, but we pretty much solidly answered their questions. In fact, it's interesting to me because the two components almost every city councilor mentioned when they first responded to our request were, one, the budgetary practical aspects. We've never had a budget before. What is it for? What's the amount? Where does it come from? All legitimate questions. And then the first one they would always say, but I absolutely agree in the need. What's interesting to me is I have not yet spoken or had a chance to spoken, nor do the questions come in about the need. And I have a whole lot of data for that I want to give to them the next time we meet. It has been tabled in the Finance Committee for the moment, which I think is to our advantage to a point. And then, of course, they and we supposedly had a summer break. And so right now, Patty, Councilor Devine, has taken on support for us. This chairs the Finance Committee, and Councilor Jenny Rivera wrote the order and also supports us, as do other city councilors, by the way. But those two have been integral in trying to get this moved on. And when I spoke with Councilor Devine not too long ago, we agreed that it was probably better to postpone it until probably around November, maybe even the end of November. Patty is actually getting surgery done at the end of September and has to prepare for that before, and they've got plenty of other agenda items to deal with right now. And a lot depends on her recovery, and I myself have to get some possible surgery on my hands. So, and it will give us a little more time, I think, to start using the budget we currently have. And the good thing about that is then we will actually have examples to show City Council when we go before them in either committee or full council of what we've been doing and how we're perfectly capable of using this money and using it well and through the proper process. So that's kind of the update mostly on that. If anybody else has anything else to add, again, we're going through an election, as you all know, and some of these counselors, most of these counselors, are going to be pretty busy in addition to their other duties to be spending time in their campaigns as well. So it just seemed like for all of us, it was better to wait pushing on that as we address this budget in the meantime and until fall. So anybody else on that? All right. Item 4 here. So just an update, an act expanding access to trails for people of all abilities. The Trails for All bill through Massachusetts that we've been working with Meg Bandera on, and we have submitted a letter of support and then updated that this year. It is coming up for a hearing soon. And as if you know anything about state bills, you often don't get much notice, maybe lucky if you get a week's notice. Meg sent me an email and I copied that and pasted it in an email attachment for you all. Betty, that will be in your email as well with the other attachment we were discussing earlier. And in it, it can tell you what she says. The Trails for All bill will likely have a hearing soon on either September 2nd or October 7th at 1 p.m. The Joint Committee on Environment and Natural Resources has published upcoming hearings and their topics, but not the specific bills that will be heard at each session. So we won't know which of these days it might be until about a week before the hearing. And that's been my experience with just about every bill. But they'll let us know. And in that case, there's usually an opportunity for you to either go and attend that if you really want to and speak, or you can attend it virtually as well. And so as soon as she gives me that final information, I will pass it on to you all. They also have a public forum every now and then. They have one coming up on September 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. This one is virtual. This is the second public forum hosted by the Massachusetts Office of Outdoor Recreation, who has really been we didn't get our bill through last year. What they did was allow this office to really kind of be our flag and banner waver, and they've really been working hard on it. So if you or a loved one has a disabling condition, you're an ally or advocate in this space, join us to learn more about the Trail Access Work Group's initiative and make your thoughts and needs about accessible nature trails known. You can register to attend to it, and the link is included in your email. And then last but not least, on September 26, 1 to 3 p.m., Waypoint Adventure is hosting a hike for all in collaboration with AMC and Unpaved Trails for All. Join us to advocate for more accessible trails in Massachusetts and hike the accessible trail at Belle Isle Marsh Reservation. Supposed to be very interesting. And at that time of year, might see some real color that would be beautiful too. It's Boston's only remaining salt marsh, and we can actually access it. So that information, if you'd like to join that, is there. I also included the flyers if you're interested in passing them around or posting them where you work about these events. That's included in your email too. So it's moving forward, but at usual slow pace. So, finally, let's see. Anybody have any questions on that or comments? Nope. All right, then we go on to We have no pending sign applications. Jeffrey Anderson Burgos did send me a request for 5 outstanding ones. And I just took a whole lot of time scrutinizing our past recordings, going from my notes, as well as the applications themselves. And we've met a number of times on these 5 ones. And sent him the updates. So mostly what we're waiting for or those folks are waiting for is updates from their city councilors at this point. So nothing really new to say in terms of our sign applications. Okay, new business. So,
Lynn,
yeah.
excuse me, there's one other old business to do.
Yes.
Is approving the minutes from last meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I usually do that at the beginning. All right. Thanks, Betty. Yes, so you all received the minutes from Sarah from our June meeting since we were on summer break for July. So I would make motion to approve the minutes and vote on that. You need a second?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay. Betty's made the motion. Okay, so
Leanne raised her hand for some
Thank you.
reason.
I think that's.
yeah, I think people are having trouble hearing tonight because we
I
did
think Leanna was
second.
seconding, right? Is that
Oh,
right?
Leanne
Leanna?
at second, sorry, all right.
So I started and Kelly second, but that's all right. Anyway, it is definitely
Lynn,
a
you
hearing
can't
problem.
make the motion as chair.
Yeah, I know. And I usually what that does is start someone to do it. So we did that. So now I do a voice count, please. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that sounds, Sarah had to leave because of audio, so that sounds like all of us, and we have enough. All right, motion approved for approving the minutes from our June meeting. And now back again, quickly, we had a workplace job discrimination complaint. All I can say, I received this, and the complainant brought up,
It's not in the city. It's not in.
it's not,
It's not a city employee
she's not a resident of the city
or a city employee.
or a city employee. It is a national organization, I believe. And so in talking with Kelly, I simply gave her to the state resources for any information and told Kelly so that we did everything in terms of what our expectations are as a commission. And then another thing actually that I don't have on here, in terms, kind of relates again back to the work that we do. We can really use some extra members. Again, I keep saying it, many hands make light work. And I think we could really use 2 other folks. And I have been working on it and found someone who looked wonderful. And Heather Leanders, as you all know, has gone through the process and got up to confirmation, which would have been on the 19th of August. But unfortunately, not long before that, she is caretaking for her mother. And unfortunately, her mother's illness took a turn for the worst, unexpected. So she made the decision she needed to for herself and her mom, and unfortunately had to withdraw that. It is a sign in some of these things that you can't always know, and we always hope for the best, and she had every reason to believe that she would be able to do it. She would have been a great asset. And we have told her, and she has asked if there's any other way that she can participate. She would love to do that because she has a lot of wonderful assets. And so I told her she can certainly come as a public member, contact any of us anytime, as well as come to a meeting as part of the public if there's something she thinks that she knows that will be helpful to share. So sadly, that's the end of that story. So again, I can't stress to you enough, we could use 2 more members, and the sooner the better. I'm going to try even harder. Again, remember, while we are expected to be mostly disabled, we have a fair amount of folks on here now. We are true to that, as well as one person who is a caretaker as well. So we can extend it. Look for someone. Think of all the folks you know. Lots of people are saying in tough times, how can we help? Well, this is a wonderful way to do that. Join a commission. Join this one. And like Marlene and others here, look at Betty and her commitment for this length of time. There are people that really would be great who may not actually themselves be disabled, but have very good experience with either working with people or lots of empathy and affinity for them. So don't let the fact that they're not disabled stop you from thinking of good candidates. I would really, really appreciate that. So, again, get that information to contacts out for me too. We didn't really specifically talk about roles. We can do that later, but at least we opened up the discussion. Hope everybody's doing okay. We got a little more time before the snow stuff comes. And you know, you can always contact me with more questions. Anyone else?
Lynn, I'd like to go back to one of the items on the new handicap applications.
Yes.
The last council meeting, they sent a new application to the ordinance. Did we also receive that for 34 North Summer Street?
No.
There's one in process then that we should have received.
Okay, that's good. Again, it is amazingly helpful, Betty, what you have picked up, particularly from ordinance. So that address again, Betty?
It has not gone to ordinance yet. It went
Okay.
through the council and they sent it to ordinance. It's at 34 North Summer.
Okay, I'll drop a line to Jeffrey about that.
And another question on an older one at 3 Vernon Street. I know it's one that you looked at and we had put it on hold because of missing information. That information came in, the ordinance passed it at their last meeting and sent it on to the council for approval. Have you signed off on that and finished the
Three,
paperwork
what
yet?
was that, Betty?
It was at 3 Vernon Street.
No, haven't heard anything.
I don't know that it's gotten signed off, but the
And that
council
must be pretty old, because like the 5 ones that he gave to tie up were all this year. So that must have been from the year before.
No, that's fairly recent.
Yeah, no, it was recent. Betty's right, it was recent. I
What
remember
name?
that address. I'm searching right now.
Yeah, I don't have the date in front of me, but it was on hold. The man completed the application. It's gone through ordinance and it's on the city council agenda for Tuesday night for final approval.
Okay, I'll double check on that one. But again, it's interesting to me that I think what Jeffrey was trying to do was to tie up any of the ones that were still outstanding, so to speak, And it's interesting that that was not on that list of 5.
Well, according to city council and ordinance, it's been completed because they're ready to give final approval to it. But I don't know that you or anyone from this group has ever signed off.
No,
on
I
approval.
get all that, Betty. But again, it sounds, it's reflective to me, and even looking at those 5 and going over them with the 5-tooth comb, and when you start, as you know, Betty, the process of it is so complex in this city, and it goes through all these 3 funnels and back and forth in front of them. And then we of course have to wait till our monthly meeting before we even get updates on those things, and city clerk's office as well. So there's a lot of communication that goes on that we're not privy to. And I wish there was. Some of these people, like in the 5 that I went over, have been waiting since, the beginning of the year, when you actually look at the date of when it was first stamped in the city clerk's office. And sometimes, again, there's reason for it. It seems like the big infraction, and I've only been doing this for 3 years compared to yours, is often not filling it out properly. But again, it seems like that should happen at the city clerk's office. They can find that, notify us quickly. City council assistant has lots of folks to represent and commissions to do, to get to us in a timely manner. Then we have to possibly do site visits as well, then get back to them. And I guess it's just hard for me, particularly having been in that position, to be waiting that long. But short of a major order, which we don't have the power to do, on changing some of that system, I think I'll talk to Brenna a little bit and see if there's something we can do in that communication, or a way that I can help so that we can get some of this information. I have talked to Jeffrey about trying to set up a time when he can contact our chair, myself in this case, on a regular basis with these things, so that they're not being held on to, as sometimes happens as well. It's, again, when you have a problem like this, then you got to go way back to figure out where it is. But I appreciate that, but just think about it. What would have happened? I didn't get notified and of any change whatsoever. And also, you just happened to be watching. If you hadn't watched that and seen that, then I wouldn't know to check on it. So there's got to be some way maybe we can plug up some of these holes. But I will definitely check on that and find out what's going on with that one and get moving on it, and then also contact Jeffrey. Anything else? And thanks, Betty.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's got to be better communication and a better structured process. Betty, I do remember what you're talking about. It's Mr. Lopez, Angel Lopez.
Correct.
They were waiting for him. He had a complete question too, and he had to provide reasoning of why he needs it, because he's located at a dead end. And
Angel Lopez we have.
yes,
I didn't
it's
think that
Angel
was
Lopez
Bernard.
on 3 Vernon Street.
Yeah, that was one of the 5, the top one, actually.
And that's up for the council to finish Tuesday night. But my question is, did you go back with them and sign that paperwork?
That's what I told Jeffrey, that it had not been finished, so I don't know what happened on that. I actually almost brought in a copy of all 5 of those to show you what I sent to him, because he
Lynn,
definitely...
This is the kind of thing too, when you're talking about not having to do everything. I follow this kind of stuff. I would be happy to follow up on this and do the work on all of this parking stuff, but,
Well,
it's the wrong term. It's accessible parking.
no,
not
but
handicap
your
parking.
point is made, and actually, again, I often feel in here that I go too long or we can't go that long. I'm glad you brought that up because that is one of the most significant roles. It's a big job. And we did have tough things going on. And again, it's something you and Leanna did. Before that, you and Don did. Now we're taking on more things. We don't want to let that slip. And we did, and in losing you, my disability makes it hard for me to go on the sites, but I have done 4 of them recently. Jess has pitched in. Marlene has gone out with you, Betty. There's nothing you could have done about your surgery. These kind of things happen. It goes back to me. So yes, that's one, especially as we're taking on the budget and survey and other things, that would be a huge help if we can have, say, 2 people volunteer to do that role. And again, then if somebody, runs into trouble, you can call on the rest of us. But if we know that person is kind of organized to do and aware of the process to do that, it will make it much easier than having 5 or 6 people doing different things in and out on this. And it's already a complex process. So if you're willing to do that, boy, I wish I had brownies because you would get big brownie points for that. That would be hugely helpful. And if we have someone else that
No, I was
that
gonna
could do
say,
that.
and Betty, thank you for that because you're more knowledgeable in doing so. So I'm gonna extend the hand. If you need help, reach out to me. I'll help you. You're more experienced at it, but I do feel like it has got to be a better process so no applications fall in the cracks. But thank you for that, Betty. If you need me to help you, let me know. Reach out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, that sounds great. So I'm going to put Jess and Betty down for that. That's huge. And in the meantime, to both of you, I will get both Jeffrey's email to me asking me about updates and my notes and information back to him on those 5.
Okay, that would help. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Betty. And Jess. All right, anything else? All right. I'm not sure if Kelly's having a problem. All right, so let's end this meeting.